Hello, everyone. Hello, every. Mike is okay. There we go. We got it. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Cumberland School Committee meeting today, October 25th, 2018. The Cumberland High School Trans Building at 7:34. I'd like for you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve the approval of the agenda. Second by Mrs. Goggin. All in favor? Aye. Against? The ayes have it, 7-0. Next item on the agenda, student government report of student activities. Anyone here representing student government? Hello? Wow. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, I just want you to know she came early tonight, 6 o'clock for this meeting.
Oh, excellent.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor Blue, and I am the chairperson for the student government. This month, student government planned and participated in our annual Spirit Week, which is a celebration of our class and school unity. This year, it takes place this week, Mondays. Students dressed up in their most patriotic outfits. We had a dodgeball tournament after school. Tuesday, we dressed up in our team's gear and had a powder puff football and cheerleading match. Wednesday, we all dressed up in Hawaiian-inspired outfits, and we had a lip-sync battle at night. Today, we all dressed up in our class colors, and tonight is the class clash. Tomorrow, we'll all show our Clipper pride by wearing blue in preparation for the homecoming football game. And on Saturday, the homecoming dance will be taking place in the Wellness Center. This upcoming Tuesday, we have a blood drive here in the transitional cafeteria. This particular blood drive will be dedicated to Cameron Faria, a high school student who unfortunately was in an accident this summer and who is making remarkable recovery in his progress in his recovery. This November, we will also be starting our Turkey Basket collection. Turkey Basket is an organization that gives Thanksgiving meals to those in the community who are facing financial hardship. And our school collects food to donate annually. Also coming up this month is the parent-teacher conferences on Monday, November 5th. Our student government members will be there to offer babysitting and directions for those who need it. Thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thank you for the update. I'd like to mention that we have two council members in the audience, Mrs. Boio and Mr. Shaw. Welcome. Next item on the agenda, consent agenda, approval of minutes for the regular meeting, 10/11/2018, and the approval of minutes for the executive session, 10/11/2018. We had missed these the last meeting. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to approve.
Mrs. Goggin makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Friedman. All in favor? Aye. Against? The ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, report out of executive session meeting. We met this evening upstairs in room 319. There were, report out of executive session, there were no votes taken, and I need a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to seal.
Mr. Denon makes a motion to seal the executive session. Second by Mr. DeMonica. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, superintendent's report. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. Just a couple of things that I would like to share with the school committee and the public. First and foremost, as you know, we have been spending a tremendous amount of time and effort on the school bond referendum, which will take place on Tuesday, November 6th. So we would certainly hope that everyone get out and support question 1 and question 5 on that date. A lot of people have been working really hard to get the information out to the taxpayers. We've had several meetings with parents at PTO meetings. In fact, we have just one left. And as you all know, we had a public forum last Wednesday, the 17th. Many of you were in attendance, and we were able to provide a wealth of information about how the referendum would work. And most importantly, the most important thing I think that we need to share with the public and repeat over and over again is the fact that Cumberland is in a position to get $83 million worth of facilities work done for just $29 million. I shouldn't say just $29 million because that's a lot of money, but who would argue that, paying $29 million for $83 million worth of work is not a benefit. So we look forward to that and are anxious for both referendums to get passed. The other thing that I wanted to mention to all of you is that we are putting together a committee to focus our attention on school start times for next September. The ultimate goal is to have a later school start time for high school students. We have talked many times about how important it is for adolescents to get the appropriate amount of sleep on a nightly basis to be at their best. And I already have a number of impressive individuals who are willing to help us move that initiative forward. So there'll be a lot of work to do, and we're going to be organizing that committee within the next week or so. In fact, I've actually had several conversations with individuals who have already committed to help us. So, in fact, Mr. Costa and I attended a school start time conference in Hartford, Connecticut last week, and it just, I think, energized us and made us understand more than ever how important it is for us to do this, because it really is a public health issue. Our students, adolescents need to get more sleep. So we'll be talking more about that, and one of the most important things that we need to do, in addition to understanding any cost implications to a move of this magnitude, I think one of the equally important things that we need to consider is making sure that we educate the public and prepare them for this transition. So we're really excited about this, and we have, like I said, we have a number of people who have already been through this process who are willing to help us, and the community will be hearing from them as well. And there is just one other thing that I wanted to share, Mr. Chairman, that is not on the agenda and my report.
Yes, Mr.
And
Mitchell.
and it is, I just wanted to let everyone know that this is the last school committee meeting before the election, which means actually all 7 of the school committee members' tenure is coming to an end for this particular term. However, 5 of them will be returning, and 2 of them have decided to, at the very least, take a little time off. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work that they do publicly, and this sort of work, it's one of those responsibilities, and it is a tremendous responsibility. You can't appreciate how much time and effort it takes until you're actually doing it. Like, we have ideas about what it takes to be an effective school committee member. We have ideas about what that is, but until you are actually in the position, you cannot fully appreciate the commitment that it takes to do it well. And I think this school committee has functioned exceptionally well. I think the school district has been in good hands. I think everyone has worked really well. It really has been a collaborative effort, which is the way good organizations are supposed to run. And most importantly, this school committee has always tried to do the right thing, and their hearts are in the right place for our students and staff. So on behalf of the students and staff, I want to thank all 7 of you for your effort. Looking forward to working with those of you who will be returning. And I want to thank Bill Denon and Amy Goggin for their support and certainly their commitment over these last few years. I have a little something for each of you, and a certificate for each of you, all 7 of you, and a very special something for those 2 who won't be returning. So I have a little certificate for each one of you. Mr. Hess. Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Bolio, did we give you a certificate? When you-
It's not framed and hanging.
It's it's in the mail.
Crystal apple.
Oh, be careful what you wish for.
Oh.
And I think you 2 know what you're going to be getting, right? That very special, famous little handbag that we give to all of the people who, so you can put your things in it when you go to the beach. Okay.
I think new committee members need this. All the paperwork in it. Yes.
So, in all seriousness, these people put a lot of hours into this work, and it's most appreciated. So thank you all for your time and effort and dedication to helping improve the performance of our staff and ultimately improving student performance. So thank you all.
Very well said, Mr. Mitchell. Next item on the agenda, reports of standing committees, payment of bills. Mr. DeMonica.
Mr. Chairman, there were no payment of bills for this time around.
All right. Next item on the agenda, fiscal management subcommittee update.
So,
Mr.
Mr.
DeMonica.
Chairman, we did have a meeting tonight for fiscal. We got our first report of the year for the budget. Things are trending well for us at the moment, but it is the first report of the year, so once things get going, I'm sure it'll change. And the other thing is, we did talk with Sedesco Food Services tonight about their budget, and things are trending well there. We do still always have concerns about the unpaid lunches, but we're working on that, and that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Also, I would like to welcome Boy Scout Troop 1 Diamond Hill Road to our meeting tonight, sitting in the back of the room. So, welcome. Hope everyone's taking really good notes. Next item on the agenda, Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorillo.
Policy and Procedures did meet the other night. We discussed and actually voted on an amended version of the harassment of personnel and student policies, just reporting. I'll explain that more in detail later on. It's a very simple housekeeping measure. Also, the main discussion the other night was the dress policy, which it was a lively discussion, and I thank everyone that came out for it. It really lent itself to a really talking about what we'd like to see in the dress policy in the future and what we'd like to keep. As you can imagine, the spectrum was covered as far as views and opinions on it. So it'll be an ongoing discussion. We're going to start meeting with some student groups and some administrators and just kind of further that process along and hopefully have an amended version of the policy sometime in this winter.
Excellent. Thank you for the update. Next item on the agenda, Achievement and Communications Subcommittee update. Mr. Denon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Achievement and Communications Subcommittee did meet earlier this week, and we took the opportunity to go through the list of items that we wanted to recommend to future committees. The future committee, the one that'll start in about a month or a couple weeks. Personally, I felt like we had a lot of balls in the air, and this is a way just to kind of put them in writing, and hopefully the next committee will pick them up. Some of the highlights, I won't go through the whole list, it's pretty long, but obviously the Achievement Committee needs to support the district strategic plan, and that's sort of number one on all of our minds, but that's number one for this subcommittee. The next big item is the grading policy, and I know we've talked a little bit about this in the larger group, but we've talked a lot about it in the Achievement Subcommittee. The grading system is being changed over the next year, 2 years. The next year for next year in the high school, and after that will be middle school. It's an important thing, and I hope that the Achievement and Communications Subcommittee stays on top of it and keeps the community informed, or works with the administration to make sure the community stays informed. And then the third big item is high school achievement. And again, it's something we've talked a lot about, and we all know we're always striving to do better. So specifically, we're talking about SATs and PSATs, proficiency, especially in math, and the graduation rate, and seeing all of those improve. So again, I have a whole list here, and we'll be putting them in the minutes of our meeting that we had on Tuesday, so if you want to read them, and I can share them with anyone. And I'll be handing it off to whoever is the new chair of the subcommittee after Election Day. I just also want to say that I really enjoyed working on that committee with Mrs. Goggin and Mrs. Friedman, and with Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Damana too, and Mr. Damana's staff. It's been an eye-opening experience. I think when we started this 2 years ago, I kind of wish we had this list that we're going to hand off, because it'll give the new committee a place to start. And I'm not sure we really felt like we had that. It was tough. We kind of had to sit down and say, well, what do we want to do? And this list is an effort to try to help push that along for the next committee. So thank you very much.
Excellent update, Mr. Denon. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, comments from the public. All right, let's start. All right, let's flip a coin.
Is this on?
Hello, Councilman Shaw.
Good evening. Councilman Shaw, District 5. Just wanted to come here tonight to express my appreciation to Ms. Goggin and Mr. Denon for their efforts and dedication over the past couple years. It's always difficult when you have great people doing great things for the community and you see a couple of them leave. Without question, I have no doubt that the next committee will pick up the ball and continue running with it as it has been over the past few years. And I also have no doubt that we have a bright future ahead of us between the future council and the future committee. So I just wanted to come here tonight, express my gratitude on behalf of all of Cumberland that couldn't make it here tonight. We didn't have enough seats, so they decided to stay home. And just say thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Bolio. I live at 196 Hines Road. Do I have to do my address, Mr. Salvatore?
You do, zip code. also.
02864. I'm the District 3 representative of the council, and I'll be returning to the council
Excellent.
in November. But as Councilor Shaw said, I want to extend my thanks. I think it's, we received some criticism for working so collaboratively together, and I would have to say that's a good thing. And we worked really hard to do a number of activities around school funding. You should be proud of that. School funding is a big, difficult conversation amongst communities, but you were very successful in helping to raise the expectations for students, but also be able to fund some of those efforts. And in addition to that, the school bond referendum wouldn't have happened unless we had help from the state, which often we don't get. Many of our hopes and dreams are truly aspirational. And we we're able to band ourselves together and get some of that work done, both on the school side and the town side. And the school department absolutely, and the school committee had the heavy lift. So thank you for those efforts. For those departing, Ms. Goggin, thank you. We didn't get to serve together on the same committee, but I'm glad that you were there for the 2 years. Mr. Denon, my silent influencer of all things school, from 1 o'clock in the morning, you might hear from Mr. Denon, why isn't this better? How are we going to be better? To noon on a Sunday, what are we going to work on? And thank you for all of your help with funding, UCOA. I think he could go into a consulting firm and offer UCOA services, but it really helped us make good decisions, both as a council and during my tenure as a school committee, around how we can best help our students. So thank you all. And Mr. Salvatore, the chair that you sit in is a very difficult one, and it's a thankless job many times. So thank you for those efforts. Thank you for rising to the challenge. You should be proud of the efforts that were led as far as school funding went. It was a big, big, heavy lift. So congratulations, and thank you again to all of you.
Thank you. Excellent. Next item. Oh,
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry, Mr. Denon, go ahead.
One of the things, so the Boy Scouts that are here, I'm helping to teach a merit badge, which is citizenship in the community. This is actually your chance to say anything you want to the school committee. As an example, was it 2 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, one scout came up and told us that he didn't like the grading policy, and that he had some good feedback. So if you have anything you want to say, this is your opportunity, and there's no pressure, don't. But
No pressure, Brian.
no pressure. Yeah.
Going once.
I can also share email addresses of everyone on the school committee, that if you want to send an email after the fact, that would be good too.
Anyone else? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, public hearing, reading of amended policies. Mr. Fiorillo.
Thank you. I would ask that J8, the harassment, personnel, student rights and responsibilities, and also G2, harassment, personnel and student rights and responsibilities, be read into the record with their amended versions. J20 was tabled, so it does not need to be read into the record.
J20 is tabled. Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. Next item on the agenda, old business, discussion and/or vote to approve the 2018/2019 school bus routes. Mr. Mitchell, would you like to lead this discussion?
Yes, just very quickly, we have had many discussions about the routes and the transportation services. I'm pleased to announce that since the last time we met 2 weeks ago, I have received, my office, Mrs. Shabbat, and I have not received any complaints. I don't know if anyone else has, but I can tell you that we have not. There was just one minor issue with a bus that was not with transporting students or meeting timelines, but it was actually the actual. There was an issue with seats being removed or whatever. But other than that minor issue, things appear to be going well, knock on wood. So all of the updated tiers and bus times are on the website, and I think, by all accounts, I think we're in pretty good shape, and I think we're ready to approve the 18-19 bus routes.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Pleasure of the committee, looking for a motion to approve the 2018-2019 school bus routes.
I'd like to ask a question.
Mr. Fiorillo, would you like to make a motion, and somebody a second for discussion? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Fiorillo, please.
Well, I'd just like to mention that, Mr. Mitchell, while I don't doubt that you have not received calls, I have spoken to several parents this week, and the general consensus is is complaining to Durham, calling your office, and I don't think it's a reflection on you. It seems that Durham management, they've lost complete faith in Durham management to solve their problems. So they just complain about them and they just go along with their day. We still have buses that are going past stops where students are not being picked up, where drivers do not know the routes at all, and they're asking their students to GPS a location of something. I have a situation here with a bus 38, which to all the information that I've been able to gather, arrives consistently late to Garvin every day, and therefore there is no way possible it can arrive to Community when it's supposed to be arriving at Community. That's only one example. I mean, I have others, but I've lost complete faith in Durham to solve this problem. And quite honestly, I'm just completely tired of it. And we keep talking about the possibility of changing start times. I have zero confidence in the ability of Durham to be able to make that happen smoothly. So I don't know if we should at some point just find them in contempt of their contract or what's going to happen. I don't understand how at some point all these problems and the situation with the seats being removed from a bus, to me, is egregious. Especially with the little sign that was added to the wall to tell students not to be there because I don't know if they were live, but there were wires on the floor. And I know that everyone saw that. And I'm sure that some of you have also heard about some of the other bus incidents, buses not showing up on time, being consistently a half an hour late to driving kids home. And it's because of the chain reaction of buses not getting to the original school on time and making it through their stops. I don't know what the solution is because, quite honestly, that's not my job. My job is to hold Durham accountable because Durham has not made any changes because we've been dealing with the same exact issues every single year for the 6 years I've been on this committee, and I'm done. I will not go forward with any more contracts with Durham unless if something changes at Durham.
Pleasure of the committee, looking for a motion to approve the 2018-2019 school bus routes. Mr. DeMonica makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion by Mr. Denon.
Mr. Fiorello, what do you recommend we do with the routes tonight?
I don't think it matters what we do with the routes, quite honestly, because the way that they're written, they're not working. Buses are not getting, there's no possibility for a bus to arrive at one school 15 to 20 minutes late after dismissal bell is rung, and for them to drop off 45 students and still get to another school for the third tier on time. These routes do not work in some cases. The same buses consistently have issues. Whether it's in the morning, they fix them in the morning, and then there's a problem in the afternoon. I don't know if it's that we don't have enough buses, if we're asking too much of these routes, the drivers, quite honestly, to make it across town. But you know what? The Cumberland map hasn't changed at all. So these routes don't work. In some places they work fine, in other places they do not.
Thank you. So I made a second. I don't know if we want to give Durham an opportunity to speak.
I'd like Mr. Mitchell to weigh in on it, if you could, Mr. Mitchell.
Well, as I said, I mean, I can only share, what I can based on my experience, and all I can say is, like, people have not been shy in the past about sharing their concerns, and all I can say is that in the last 2 weeks, I have, in principles, are pretty good about letting us know when there is a problem. I'm not suggesting that there is not a problem. All I'm telling you is that, based on my experience, I have not heard any concerns since the last time that we met. That's just being honest.
Mr. Neves, would you like to step up to the microphone, or your coworker? I apologize, I cannot remember his name. Mr. Montero, would you like to come up to the microphone to provide any input on the concerns? Hello, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. What Mr. Fiorelli has just said is something that I'm just hearing about. what we've done in the past is we have provided to the members of the committee with the school arrival time that we pulled from our GPS data, and we can do it again. I mean, as we've been doing all along, working with Mr. Mitchell and the member of the community, every time we have some concern brought to our attention, we did make sure that they were properly addressed.
I'm curious also why there are so many substitute buses happening throughout the district so that it completely negates the usefulness of the Where's My Bus app. Also, there seems to be an abundance of substitute bus drivers. Is that just a sickness thing, or are you shuffling drivers from one district to another because you're a little low in other places or here?
No, we are just experiencing a shortage in driver, which is experienced by all the other bus company and transportation company in general, not only in Rhode Island, but across the country. And as far as the bus goes, we have been working with our IT department to address the issue with the bus tracker, because we did find out that some of the buses were not properly populating into the application.
Mr. DeMonica.
Can we have your email address so when the parents complain to us that we can forward those to you as well? And you're the regional manager for this area, and so we'd like to make you aware of it as well, and maybe you'll get tired of all these emails from people. Maybe even give us your cell phone number. I'm glad to put that up on the Facebook pages for parents to call you directly and with their frustrations, because this is getting tiring.
I will gladly give you my business card so you can publish the information.
Thank you.
Excellent. Mrs. Goggin.
I actually kind of have a question about this approval of routes because it seems kind of completely irrelevant. I assume if we approve them and there's still problems, that Durham will monitor them. I assume there will still be problems. I assume if we don't approve them, they're still going to run the way they are and continue to be monitored. So I don't even understand what, I mean, what this is, just a.
That's a good
activity.
question, Mrs. Goggin. Mr. Mitchell, would you like to weigh in on this? Yeah.
Well, all I can say is that I have, whenever, and I was just talking to Mr. Kane, but whenever I have received any concerns as of late, I forward them to all three of the gentlemen who have been coming to the meetings over the last several weeks. So whenever I get a concern, I forward it to Mr. Neves, Mr. Montero, and Mr. Schmuck, and they have been responsive. So that has been my experience. I understand clearly there is some frustration, but that's what I have been doing. I have been forwarding every single concern directly to them, and they have been handling each one of them.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Chairman, can I
DeMonica.
pull back my motion, and I think we should just file this instead of taking a vote on it. This is,
Table?
it's not tabled it, but, like we have with the CHS report that we get in fiscal, we just file it and put it up there because, as they're saying, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not being followed anyways.
But we do have a policy, though, Mr. DeMonica. Mr. Denon, please.
Yeah, Mr. DeMonica, our transportation policy, which is E2, it says the committee annually approves all bus routes and bus stops within 30 days after the opening of school, and only such approved routes are to be followed. I know we're past the 30 days, and in the past we've not followed that, but I think I would rather see us approve them. We can't go back in time and improve them retroactively, but we could approve them tonight.
I would hope that, in my experience with Durham, that they will continue to move forward to correct any issue parents and schools are having. Correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Yeah, one question I have is if the routes do change in a month, do we have to go back and approve them again? And I don't, we've never done that, as far as I know. So I think this is our requirement by our own policy. So you're keeping your motion, and I'll keep my second. I don't know if I had to say that, but.
Mr. Fiorillo.
And I agree. That's what our policy says, and I think our policy needs to be adjusted to take these matters into consideration.
Mr.
But I think the key is, what we're saying is these are the routes that the buses are going to follow. It doesn't really say the times, it says the routes. So I agree that the two go hand in hand. It's hard to separate them, but by our policy, we're approving these routes.
Well, then maybe what we need to do is make it so that once the police have approved the routes, we just approve that portion of it, because we're really more concerned at that point with the safety, because whether we approve routes or not, they're running. And whether they're running compared, whether they're running to the schedule or not, that's the route. So we're actually approving something that we know isn't actually working all the time. I mean, Bus 19 last year was a mess the entire school year, with kids getting home very late in the afternoon, and nothing was ever done. Things were tweaked here and there, but it was consistently a problem. So quite honestly, us approving these routes, to me, is meaningless.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you there. It doesn't change the routes at all. No, it doesn't
Correct.
change the situation.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Against?
Nay.
The ayes have it, 6-1. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Montero.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, I apologize. New business, vote to approve the updated school safety plan. Mr. Mitchell.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, this was discussed in executive session, and I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I apologize for coughing so much. Pleasure of the committee, looking for a motion to approve the updated school safety plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Aye. Against? The ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing.
Mr.
that
Denon.
The safety plan is confidential. That's why it's not available to everyone in the audience or on our website. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Denon. Next item on the agenda, discussion and/or vote to approve the revised 2018/19 school calendar, the parent-teacher conferences, November 5th. Pleasure of the committee.
Make a motion, we approve.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
Mr. Denon.
It's not a long discussion. Is there, one of the things missing from the calendar is graduation date. Has that been set, and can we add that now?
Well, graduation, I think was it the 11th? I think, yeah, the 11th. And we have we have the date, we have the location, and the only reason that we haven't been able to come up with a firm, definitive day is because we're waiting for the university, CCRI in Lincoln, to provide us with the paperwork, and they've been a little slow in getting that to us. But we're the date has, we've been told that everything is ready to go and that we have the date. We just are waiting for to sign the contract.
Sorry. You said June 11th. I think if it's the Monday night, it's the 10th.
Yeah, I apologize.
Sorry, I
don't
just didn't want it going on
I
record anywhere.
apologize, yeah.
So, Mr. Mitchell, are we able to, can we amend the calendar and put the 10th on there now? So we're making one change? Or do you want to hold off on that?
Well, I mean, we can certainly, if we need to, that's the date, right, on the calendar. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at it. I
Yeah.
apologize. I can certainly look.
The
fine.
10th is Monday.
Okay, so it is the 10th, and I think we can make it tentative. If we have to change it, then we can certainly amend it.
Yeah, the reason is we've had people ask us, and they see a date, sorry, they see our calendar and it says to be determined, and if it has been determined, I just wanted to.
Yeah, well,
put
the date, we have been told that we have that particular night, that particular time, so I would suggest that we go ahead and make the change, and if for some reason there's an issue, which
Yeah.
I hope there won't, we've been working on this, and to his credit, Mr. Costa has been all over this, and I was involved initially, but we've been working on this since June.
Yeah.
So I'm a little surprised that it's taken as long as it is to get this thing done. So I may have to call the president of the university at some point. I think we're at that,
Okay.
close to that point.
Thank you.
It's election time. Call the governor. She'll get it passed through for us. All right, so I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor? Against? The ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion and/or vote to approve amended policies. Mr. Fiorillo.
Yes, as I stated, we are voting on J8, the harassment, personnel and student rights and responsibilities policy. Small change had to be made with the change in personnel. We just had to specify who the contact person or people will be. We actually expanded it a little bit so that students or personnel can notify a building administrator, the superintendent, or the HR director if there is an issue. And the same language has been mirrored in both policies. One policy is really for personnel and one's really for students. But I would make a motion to approve J8, the harassment, personnel, student rights, and responsibilities policy.
Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to approve the J8 harassment policy. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Goggin. All in favor? Aye. Against? The ayes have it, 7-0. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Fiorillo, G2.
It's the same issue with just G2 of the harassment policy, and I would make a motion to pass it.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to approve J2 harassment. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Against? The ayes have it, 7-0. The next final item on the agenda, J20, which has been tabled, correct,
Yes.
Mr. Fiorillo? Thank you.
No action.
No action taken.
Mr. Fiorillo,
Yes.
maybe, I don't know, I know we have a policy on policies, and I wonder if that policy should be amended to make these things easier, so they don't have to go through. Like, well, the changes we're making tonight on those two policies are relatively minor, right? They're name changes, and it seems like it doesn't need to go through the same changes like the dress code policy, the same process. Anyway, something to think about. We don't.
Well, the only thing I would say to that would be, it's an actual change to the policy, the notification of personnel. So, I mean, it's a very minor thing. It's something that you've been on policy now for 4 years. It takes literally, 5, maybe 10 minutes in a policy meeting, and then we just vote on it.
So I've just wasted a lot of time. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Denon, it's your last meeting. You can take over the microphone if you want. I have no problem. I don't see the troops smiling, Mr. Denon, so. There they go. There's the smile. Next item on the agenda, personnel recommendations. Vote on appointments. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have 2 leaves of absence and 1 appointment. If I may, I'll give you the 2 leaves first.
Right, excellent.
I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the adjusted unpaid leave of Laura Hennessy, grade 2 teacher at community school, effective October 15th, 2018, through the remainder of the 2018-2019 school year. And I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the FMLA leave of absence of Christina Kernick, grade 5 teacher at community school, with an anticipated leave of January 18th, 2019, and a return date of April 22nd, 2019. Thank you.
So you have 2 recommendations, correct?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mitchell? So pleasure of the committee, looking for a motion on the 2 recommendations as read.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Demotica. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
I have one appointment this evening, Mr. Chairman. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Eric Hansen, special education teacher at North Cumberland Middle School, with an effective date of November 13th, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Pleasure of the committee, looking for a motion on the recommendation of the appointment. Mrs. Goggin makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Denon, do I? Mr. Denon has a second.
I don't know you can do that. Oh.
Well, we can take it back. Thank you, Mr. Denon. All in favor? Against? The ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, school committee comments or school liaison reports. Anyone? Mr. DeMonica.
Well, this comes the time of the year where we have a few of our school committee members leaving, and it's going to be hard for them, for us, I think, especially having Mr. Denon, the numbers, and Amy's point of view as a parent on a lot of these committees that, I mean, I'm very appreciative, and I told her about the dress code policy. As a gentleman, I know nothing about girls' clothing and, you know, what's appropriate. But I think you guys are going to be really missed. As I told Mr. Denon, if our bond gets approved, I'd like to see him sit on the building committee, and I don't think that anything in our policy says that you can't participate. I mean, you bring a wealth of knowledge, both years, to your committees, and I'd like to see you just come and put your 2 cents in and, you know, needle these guys and tell them what you think is right and wrong. As a parent that have high school children in elementary and middle, I mean, you bring a wealth of knowledge and, you know, a personal view. Mrs. Bolio mentioned she got the apple, and, you know, we did it again. If I can get these boxes open, and all the members of the school committee got something for you guys to put on your desk at home or at work. And instead of getting the golden apple, you guys get the crystal apple. It does have it's got the ink, you know, the letter C on there for the anchor. So instead of the golden apple to the teachers, the blue apple for for you guys. And let me get this box open. And we got one for Mr. Denon as well. And, you know, don't be strangers, because your wealth is needed. We'll all make sure we're getting your text messages during the meetings, Mr. Denon, when we need facts. And I swear you must have the password to rides at your COA system, because you can generally get them very quick for us. But we got one for Mr. Denon as well, and you know, for me, you're going to be missed, and I'm hoping that the people that get elected can, I don't want to say fill your shoes, but they're going to be hard to both years to get up there, and hopefully they get up to speed quick, and we have another good 7-member committee here that really puts the children first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to,
Mr. Denon.
thank you, Mr. DeMonica, and thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure serving on the school committee. I remember talking to Mrs. Bolio about serving in some public capacity. You know, how long ago was that? I don't know, 5 years ago. And it seems like yesterday. It goes by fast. But and I will say this is like it's one of the toughest jobs, but it's also one of the most rewarding jobs, I think. And hopefully you all agree. I've enjoyed working with everyone, and I don't know if I should speak for you, Amy, but like, we're not going away, right? I can speak for myself. I'm not going away. So I know, Mr. DeMonica, you already mentioned something, but if I can help in any way, I'm more than happy to help. And you know, please get in touch with me. You have my email address. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, excuse me.
Mrs. Scott.
Yeah, I want to say thank you too, again. And This is really nice. And I just, I can't say enough about working on achievement. I know I gave you a hard time sometimes, but it was really great working with Mr. Denon and Mrs. Friedman. And Mr. Damana, I really appreciate all the work that you and Mrs. Rude and Mrs. Cardoza do. It's impressive. I wish more people saw it and saw the results and everything you do. And yeah, I'm definitely hoping to stay and go into achievement meetings. So thank you.
Mrs. Friedman.
Okay, so I just want to personally thank you, too, for your service and for your unending commitment to the district and for teaching me many things, like how to find things on Google Drive and Ride and all of those things. And I'm going to miss sitting in between you. And I don't know who's going to sit next to me in November, but I'm going to miss you. Thank you.
We'll be right out there.
Anyone else? Mr. Fiorillo?
Yes, I want to say thank you to Mrs. Goggin. She worked very hard with me on the dress policy that we discussed the other night. It wasn't an easy conversation or easy work to do. But also, just in general, I've served with Bill now, I don't know, on and off for what, 2-3 times? So, 3-4 years, something like that. 4, has it been 4? And Amy for the last 2. Their help has been invaluable, and their take and their views on some of the issues that we face has been wonderful, and also really rewarding to work with them. So, just thank you for your service.
Thank you. Mrs. Goggin, I would like to say we probably didn't see eye in eye, over the last 2 years, but I mean, you've always had the best interests of the students, the school, the taxpayer to do the right thing. And I actually enjoyed working with you, and I wish you the best of luck on your endeavors. And also, I want to thank you for being the clerk. I don't think anybody thanked you for being the clerk. I want to thank you for being the clerk. I still remember Bill and I were angling to get you to be the clerk.
That is no longer a thankless job. We just thank you.
Mr. Denon, I'm going to miss you up here. You and I, we have communication, I think, more than anyone I've ever had with. The text, we've had some very strategic meetings with the mayor that get a little hairy. We've done a lot of things over the 4 years, and you will be missed. But I know, I agree. I can't remember who said it. Mrs. Bolio, the texts at midnight. Sorry, I know your family is here, but to stay involved, definitely. Your value is extremely important to anything that I do, and you've been highly regarded in this town when it comes to the schools, administration, the citizens, everyone. So, thank you for your service. Anyone else? Mr. Hess, I think you're the only one, but I don't know if you have a 4-page.
Yeah, just a
He's
few
got
thousand words.
He's got a
here.
4-page.
Yeah, just
okay.
a few thousand words. So I'll start by saying thank you to Mr. Salvatore for his work as chair during this term. We saw some very difficult situations during this term, but I think Ray was steadfast in his efforts to keep moving us forward. He's put in many long hours in his role as chair, and I believe he's always had the best interest of the district in his heart. Running this meeting, interacting with the administration, and being the spokesperson for the committee is not an easy role, but I think Ray did an admirable job during some difficult times, and I want to thank you for all that you've done to maintain our momentum and to keep moving the district forward. Obviously, like everyone else, I'm sad to see Amy and Bill leave. I do look forward to welcoming the new members, but I think Cumberland has benefited greatly from your service over this term. Mrs. Goggin has been a strong advocate for our students, especially high-achieving students who can sometimes not be as challenged as rigorously as we would like. She has very strong ties to parents in the community, and she's leveraged those ties to gather good, actionable information about issues and concerns affecting the community. Her work on the committee has combined a mother's heart and a mathematician's mind, bringing both passion and a critical analysis to each issue. She has done a masterful job as clerk. Not many people realize the amount of time and effort that goes into being the clerk, especially one that does the job as well as Mrs. Goggin has. She has set the bar very high for her successor. Mr. Denon embodies the ideals of community service. He always concerns himself with moving the district forward, with doing right by the various constituencies we represent. Based on the number of personal, professional, and community commitments evidenced by the Boy Scouts here now, that he balances, I'm convinced he has a time turner from Harry Potter. Bill is always well-versed on the topics we're discussing and sees issues from many sides. His research skills are legendary. I have made his surname a verb. To denon something is to quickly search for and find the relevant information on any given topic. His ability to find information is uncanny and, frankly, a bit frightening at times. But thankfully, he uses his superpower for good. I would like to personally thank both of you for sharing your time, intellect, insight, and experience with us here on the committee and with the larger Cumberland community. Those of us who have served with you are better for it, but more importantly, so too are the students of the district. I'm personally sad to see you step down, but I know that you'll continue to contribute to the vibrancy of this community in myriad other ways. Thank you, and I wish you very well.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeMonica?
since we lost our photographer, could we ask Mr. Shaw and Mrs. Bolio to take a picture of all of us together?
Why don't we adjourn?
Why don't we adjourn for yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Well, Mr. Mitchell, do we have an executive session meeting? No, sir. No. Next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Denon, I have a second. Mrs. Goggin, all in favor? Against? I'm against. I'm against.
Me too.
2, so it passes 5-2. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.